enough of a resume for you?
No.
You may have changed the future, but you didn't change our fate.
First of all, I think that you like to dramatize things. It's not that dramatic. But, I mean, for me, it is always great that anytime I work with Linda, and I think she was missing in the other Terminators, I had a great time working with her on Terminator 1 and then Terminator 2. So it was very clear when Jim Cameron told me that he has a great idea about a new story for Terminator, and that he will create this story and have it written. And to bring Linda back, I was very excited. I thought it was really good, a new twist to the whole thing, and the whole idea to make Terminator, this one, Dark Fate, kind of like a sequel to the second one, I thought was also a brilliant idea. And so, you know, I think it ended up really well after a lot of work and months and months and months of work on the set and all this stuff. And Tim Miller doing a great job as the director with the visual effects and all this. I thought that it came out really fantastic.
I do think we are seeing a lot more women taking on the roles of action hero. There have always been strong women in film, but we are now seeing women that are armed and strong and fighting hand to hand. And so that is definitely new, and I hope it's not just a trend. I hope that we get to continue kicking butt. Well, definitely we are very proud to have Natalia Reyes in this outstanding role. I'm happy that she really is the future of the franchise, and she's stunning as an actress and as a person, and just absolutely 100% capable of carrying on the torch. And I do hope it's the beginning of something new for the Latina actresses, because there are so many good ones, and she's living proof that she can handle it, totally handle it.
Well, first of all, I would say that, as I said earlier, that I thought it was a great idea for Jim Cameron to create this story and to make this kind of a sequel directly to Terminator 2. I think that Terminator 2 was obviously a very successful movie. It was the most successful movie of that year internationally, and it broke new grounds when it comes to visual effects and to action and all those kind of things. And I think that, and it's something that you were talking about earlier, I think that Linda was not just another woman that was doing action. She just really raised the bar when it comes to action amongst women. And so she really became a great inspiration that other women then started emulating her and copying her. And I think there's just no one like her. And I think now having seen her come back now on A Dark Fate, and again with the age of 60 plus, to go and kick some serious ass, it's just really unbelievable. The kind of shape that she got in, the kind of endurance she had, even though she complains about that it was harder for her to get up when she fell and all this stuff. But, that's all, nonsense. That's maybe the way she felt. But I did not see any of that. I saw a very, very fast woman, just like in the second Terminator, a powerful woman, ferocious with her speed and everything, with her fight scenes and so. So I just think that this is a level that other women are trying to kind of live up to, but it will be very hard to do.
As to me, I can't really speak to the 3 intervening films after Terminator Judgment Day, but I think the element that was missing was just sort of stripping it back down to a story with a few characters that you can really care about. You can have all the special effects in the world, you can blow up 1,000 buildings, but if you don't know who's inside the buildings, it hardly matters. So that's what we've tried to do, is just sort of bring it back to its stripped down form, a few characters that you can love and care about, and then we go from there.
Yeah, I think the strength of this film is that it has pretty much the elements that really are very entertaining. It has a great story, it has great emotions, which was, to me personally, the biggest surprise, and it has fantastic action, and the director, Tim Miller, is a genius with visual effects and with stunts and all this. I think he did really a fantastic job, and we can see this now with the test screenings.
Well, I'm not sure that was something that we were aiming for, but it's a lovely bonus that's happening in this film. Only because it's in the hands of Natalia, and Mackenzie, of course, is also equally wonderful, but the fact that Natalia is from Colombia and has, just upped the level because of her incredible talent, and I think it's the talent that matters here. But yes, because we worked and created an ICE, a detention center, we were all very aware, and Tim particularly, about the sensitivity of that and the fact that this is a very current situation that needed to be addressed. And when we shot those scenes, Tim made a speech to say that he was so terribly sorry to have to represent the truth of immigration into America. And he cried because he just was aware of how real the situation was, even though we were duplicating it, that it was a very real situation. And whatever we can do to bring that into people's minds is a real bonus for the film. Very many fond memories, although I really feel like I need to come back when I'm not working so that I can see more of the city, because they were early days on the film, and I did spend a lot of time in my room sorting out the script and working on things, and understood that I couldn't necessarily be the tourist that I wanted to be, because there was so much work to get done, and that's just number one priority for me. I thought it was and is a beautiful city. Just looking up at the tops of the buildings and seeing the amazing statuary, I just was so impressed and kind of hungry to get out there and see it. So I'm going to have to come back.
I go with you.
All right, we're coming back. I'm surprised to hear it's the first R.
That's it.
Yeah, I think some of the other Terminator movies, definitely the Judgment Day.
The first Terminator and the second Terminator definitely were R-rated movies, yeah.
But that's just a function of what we had to achieve. The PG rating will pull in more of an audience, but it wasn't necessarily the film that we wanted to make. So we leave that to the other minds, the studio and the director. But we wanted to make the movie that we wanted to make. So hopefully it'll work.
But the bottom line is, it's not called Terminator the Babysitter. So let's just stay away from the PG-13 and all this other nonsense, because it will be fake. And I think that was one of the reasons why in the United States the last movie didn't do that well. It did very well internationally, but in the United States it didn't do well because people were very upset. The fans were very upset that it was a PG-13 rating. It is studio bullshit. You know, you have to understand the studios are great. They put up the money and they distribute the movies and they do a great job and all this stuff. But somewhere along the line, people will also make mistakes. And the studios make mistakes all the time because they think, well, the Titanic made billions of dollars and this movie made billions of dollars and Avatar made billions of dollars and they were PG-13 movies. So let's make Terminator also PG-13 movies. It's nonsense. Terminator is a brutal movie. Terminator terminates things, he crushes things, he wipes things out, and that's just the way it is. And then, of course, over the years, Terminators have added other kind of characteristics, like human qualities or whatever else, but it's a killing machine, and that's what it does.
And my character, Sarah Connor, is very upset. So there is some language. And I think that we might have cheated her if she couldn't be true to form and be her own ruined self to the greatest
Well, you say it around 20 times fucks. I mean, it's,
I know.
How many times do you get away with that?
Yeah, we were only allowed one F word in the movie if it was PG-13. And we... like, where are we going to use that word? And by day 2, I had already said it 10 or 15 times. So there went that.
And I think there was a second part to the question about your interest in potentially like coming back again as Sarah.
Well, we'll have to see how this one performs. And I mean, I'm quite happy to leave it alone and to go back to my lovely life in New Orleans because they're hard films to shoot. Mostly, I would only really want to return if there was something new to say because that's just my, the actor in me that doesn't want to keep doing the same thing. So if there is something new to say, I'll be there.
I mean, can I be journalist here for a second?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So you mean that you're happy going back home to New Orleans and not being with me on a movie set and having a great time? Is that what you're saying?
You're coming to New Orleans. He's coming to New Orleans.
But still, we had a great time on the set.
We had a great time.
Working together, and you felt productive. You did a great job.
Let me rephrase that. I hope to hell I get to do it again because of him.
Now we're talking.
Well, there were a lot of hard moments, so it's really hard to pick just one. We spent a lot of weeks, mostly Natalia and myself, and I believe that in the film it's really just a short period of time, but you have to understand that you spend weeks and weeks and weeks doing something that might only be 4 minutes on film. So we were in the water. We had been given scuba lessons. You know, they would introduce us to scuba, and then 2 days later we would go back and go deeper and farther, and then 2 days later we'd have to go back and do it in the dark so that we became comfortable being in the dark water, doing near drowning scenes and action scenes and all kinds of things. So after several weeks in the water, we developed ear infections because that water is being shared by an entire crew of people. And so we got ear infections. And when we got out of the water, we went into the Humvee, and then they hung us upside down at 90 degrees. And the minute that I would reach 90 degrees hanging upside down, I would feel nauseated because my ears couldn't equilibrate. So nothing is more fun than acting with ear infections and nausea for another several weeks. It was just a sort of a constant grind, and there was no end in sight. So that was something that, you know, they don't teach you in acting school, how to do all that and still do some great work. As to the fun, there were a lot of things that were fun, really the weapons and certain things that we got to do. Tim actually would have to say, Linda, stop smiling, because the weapons and the moments that I had, they would put us on a harness or, and pull us along down an incline, and I'd have to roll and pick up a weapon and come up shooting at this high speed. And it was just like being a child again. I was like, again, Daddy, let's do it again, because it was just so much fun to have to learn to use the body, to not turn so hard that the entire body would flip and get out of focus. So just the command of the body and the speed was like the greatest ride on earth. So I wanted to do that all day. But Tim would have to say, Linda, stop smiling, because it was just so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the most difficult moments were when we have this plane crash. When the plane crashes and comes down, there's this free fall with tremendous speed, and therefore there would be no gravity inside the plane because of this fall, this drop. And so when we had this huge fight scene inside the plane while the plane is dropping around 160 miles an hour downward towards the ground, it was very, very difficult to shoot those scenes because you had to be suspended on cables, and those fight scenes became kind of like really strenuous to do and very difficult to do. So I think those were the most difficult moments, and you're also acting towards something that doesn't exist a lot of times, because there will be green screens, so they will put the background and all this other stuff in there afterwards. So I think those scenes are very difficult. It's not going to be a acting scene that maybe is the most difficult, but it's an action scene that becomes then the most difficult. But the fun thing is like Linda says, the funny thing is you rehearse so many times to go and to load the weapons and reload the weapons and all of this stuff. But as soon as the camera runs, something always screws up. And then you're trying to now act really cool and try to load the weapons with like a machine supposed to, and then all of a sudden it jams and it doesn't quite work, and then we all start breaking out and laughing and having a great time with the whole thing, because it happens to all of us. So there were funny moments like that also.
Yes, I would say very much, to answer the question of the Rev 9 and the T-1000, because with each incarnation of the killing machine, the skill set gets bigger and bolder and harder to exterminate. So just by the nature of, he's the 10th incarnation of a Terminator, now named Rev 9, just by definition, he's got to be better. And in terms of getting back together with Arnold, there's nothing better than that. I just love working with him. And we have forged a great friendship. We have 35 years of history together. And that is a wonderful thing to revisit whenever we can.
I feel exactly the same way working with Linda. It has been a jewel working with her. One of the most dedicated people that I've ever met. She really works her ass off to really create a good performance on the screen. And she's really taking her craft seriously and all that stuff. I think it's really fantastic. One can see it on the screen. And as far as it goes with, the Rev 9, I think it is more dangerous. It's clear because, he can adapt anyone's voice. He can adapt anyone's look. He can go and adapt anyone's clothing at any given time. And there you have then two. You have the skeleton that can kind of separate from the body. And so now you're fighting two. And that becomes very, very dangerous and almost impossible to do. And so this is why you see him fighting this unbelievable amount of people in the detention center there. And no one can keep this guy down. Because he's a machine and he just has so many different abilities. And that's why we have such a tough time trying to get a hold of him and try to kill him and get rid of this kind of unbelievable, that coming again and coming again, kind of a Terminator-like character.
Yes, and I haven't seen it yet. I won't see it for another 10 days because I like to wait until the movie is complete. I don't want to see the process. Tim kept trying to show me shots of the CGI of the younger Sarah Connor, and I was like, no, I don't want to see it, because it's really hard to give up even 1 minute of a performance when you care about a character so much. The way that scene was shot was with a young woman who was the body double and an actress in her own right. So she was chosen mainly because her body resembled Sarah Connor 28 years ago. But, you know, I got to contribute very little to that scene. The stunts had been rehearsed. She did a very fine job, but it's painful to sit and watch somebody do you, but it's not you. Then they added the CGI face onto her body later. And really, I had to go and, at the end, duplicate vocally her performance, because they CGI'd my young face onto her young body, and then I had to go in and sort of tie it all together, but just vocally. And, you know, it's a whole new world out there. It was hard to watch because it wasn't me.